I, 18M, have a half-brother who is the same age as me. I'll call him Cameron. Our dad got 2 women pregnant around the same time. I'm older by 6 months. My dad chose Cameron's mom over mine, and they're married now. Cameron is his parents' only child. For as long as I can remember, I've always felt like I was just a backup son for my dad. I know he does love me, but not as much as Cameron. I live an hour and a half away from him, but he would always make the drive to come see me when I was younger and still does to this day. If I ever need anything, he'll make sure I get it. He took me on trips all the time, just me and him. But still, I felt like an outsider. He would constantly put me second to Cameron. If we both had sports games on the same day, he would always go to Cameron's with his wife. Once, when I had an award ceremony, he couldn't come because Cameron was sick. It was just a cold, by the way. When I wanted him to teach me how to drive, he said he couldn't because he promised Cameron he would teach him first, but that he'd help me after Cameron got his license. I could list off a bunch of other examples. My dad would show up to my events, but if Cameron had something going on at the same time, he wouldn't come. Cameron and I aren't friends. We get along fine if we're together, but neither of us is going out of the way to talk to the other. I think he's spoiled and obviously our dad's favorite. Our dad and his mom did him no favors because his grades are bad and his life has no direction. He didn't apply to any colleges and he won't even get a part-time job. We're both graduating high school this year. His school district released their graduation schedule after mine, and of course, our graduations are on the same day at the same time. We live an hour and a half apart, so obviously our dad can't make it to both. He's known my graduation date for weeks before Cameron learned his. We already had plans for him to come and spend the day here. But I knew as soon as I saw that schedule he was going to flake. At first, he said he wasn't sure what he was going to do. He's been avoiding the topic for weeks, but our graduations are on the 29th, so he has to decide now. Well, yesterday he took me to dinner. He told me that he was going to go to Cameron's graduation. He said it was because Cameron's grandparents weren't going to be able to make it, and Cameron would only have his mom, while I have my mom, stepdad, siblings, and grandparents all coming to mine. I'm not an idiot. It was just an excuse that I knew was coming. He tried to soften the blow by promising me he'd make up for it by taking me on a graduation trip anywhere I wanted to go, even though he had already promised me that months ago. He's taking his wife and Cameron on a family trip to Hawaii in June. It's supposed to be Cameron's graduation trip, but he promised he and I would have our own trip. Now all of a sudden, that trip is supposed to also be a makeup for missing my graduation. So I told him okay, I want to go to this one weekend event that is in the same week he's going to Hawaii. He told me he can't because that's when they're going to Hawaii. I didn't actually want to go to this event, I was just proving a point. I told him to postpone his Hawaii trip so he could take me to the event. He said he couldn't because everything is already paid for and non-refundable. I told him that he's missing my high school graduation. The least he can do is make me the priority when it comes to the graduation trips. He said I'd have to pick a different weekend. I told him he doesn't actually care about making it up to me, he's only okay with what I want so long as it doesn't interfere with his real family. He denied it and told me to try to understand the position he's in. I told him straight up that he always chooses Cameron over me. For once, I want to be the first choice. So I said I'll have a ticket ready for him, but that if he doesn't come, I'll know where I stand in his life. I don't care about a makeup trip. Either he shows up and we still have a relationship, or I'm just done with him. He told me that I was being unreasonable, and maybe I am, but I'm still standing my ground. I already know he's not going to come, even after my ultimatum. So, am I wrong for throwing away our entire relationship over this? Hop in the comments. He does love me. Trust me. I have no problem calling out my dad's many shortcomings, but not loving me isn't one of them. The problem is he loves Cameron a lot more. There's not a single doubt in my mind that he'd give up his life to save mine if he had to. But if he had to choose between saving me or Cameron, I might as well start calling my family to say my goodbyes. Update 1. Some people wanted an update on my post. My graduation was on Wednesday. Surprisingly, my dad actually chose me and attended my graduation, though not initially. After I gave him the ultimatum, he kept trying to talk to me as if nothing was wrong. He asked me to spend time with him a lot and asked when I was free, probably feeling guilty or trying to compensate for choosing Cameron. I never met with him. Cameron messaged me, telling me to stop being a prick and to get over it, as our dad was stressed out over the whole thing. I just blocked Cameron and moved on. On the day of my graduation, my dad told me he was coming down to spend the day with me before heading home to attend Cameron's graduation. At first, I told him not to bother because there was no point in showing up if he was going to leave before the actual ceremony. But he ended up coming anyway. We had a small get-together at my house with my mom's side of the family. My dad was there, acting as if nothing was wrong, which was annoying. I refused to take pictures with him, telling him I'd take pictures at my graduation. If he wanted pictures with me, he could show up. A few hours before the ceremony, he said he had to leave. I said goodbye forever, and he pulled me aside to talk. He tried to justify his decision again. I told him I was serious about what I said, I would not talk to him ever again. I made it clear that this wasn't something I would be mad about for a bit and then get over. I wouldn't call him crying in a few years to apologize. He asked why I was being like this, and I just let it all out. I told him I was sick and tired of being second place all the time. My entire life, I'd been told he couldn't show up for me because Cameron needed him or he had promised Cameron first. Yet the one time I had my graduation date set and planned first, he still canceled on me for Cameron. I asked him to give me one good reason why he had to go to Cameron's graduation over mine, specifically. Nothing like, this is a tough situation. I can't be in two places at once, etc. He said it was because if he didn't go to Cameron's graduation, he would have to deal with a pissed off wife, and his entire home life would be tense. I asked why his wife and Cameron could never be the ones he apologized to and asked to try to understand. Why did I always have to be handed the short straw on purpose? He didn't have an answer. I told him I hoped Cameron got his life together because, right now, he's on a nosedive trajectory that ends with him still living at home rent-free in his 30s, with a girlfriend he can't afford to give a ring to, let alone a wedding, and 3 kids who are being raised by my dad's wife. I didn't care anymore at that point. It's true. Cameron's a loser. I told my dad good luck because Cameron's the one who's going to be taking care of him when he's old. I'm out. I guarantee Cameron will take their money and put his parents in the absolute cheapest nursing home he can find. They failed him by spoiling him and treating him like he's perpetually 5 years old. Dad still ended up leaving anyway. I refused to hug him and told him I was done with him. That kind of ruined my mood, but once I got to school and started hanging with my friends, I decided to let it go. I wanted to enjoy my graduation night and just forget all the BS. After the ceremony, I was shocked to see my dad walking toward me. I was positive he was going to Cameron's graduation. Like a pew-pew to my head, get this answer right or you unalive. Well, I guess I'd be unalive because I was 100% sure he'd choose Cameron. He already did, but I guess he turned around and came back. So he hugged me and told me he was sorry for everything and how he treated me, and that he did love me just as much as Cameron, even if he'd been bad at showing it. I don't really believe that last part, but he showed up, so that's what I'm focusing on. Cameron was pissed, of course, and messaged me from a different number. He called me a crybaby and selfish, saying Dad only went to my graduation because I threw a fit. He didn't understand that it wasn't me having a tantrum, it was a last straw situation for me. I just sent him a picture of me and our dad at my graduation and told him to get over it. Then I blocked that number too. Screw him. I'm glad he knows what it's like to be second choice just once. I'm sure our dad is already bending over backward to make it up to Cameron anyway, so he'll live. Our joint graduation party is going to be awkward, but hopefully, we'll just keep our distance from each other. Oh, and don't worry, I'm not delusional. I know my dad is just going to go back to his same old routine. And now, if I ever bring up his unfairness again, he'll always be able to throw in my face that he came to my graduation over Cameron's. It'll probably be his trump card. Not going to lie, it did feel good to have everyone crap on my dad with me in my last post because I was pissed off at him when I posted. I know that he does love me, though. Still, I think I'm going to take some advice I got in that post. I'm not cutting my dad off, but I'm going to stop trying. I have a lifetime of him awarding me the silver medal no matter how well I do, and I'm tired of it. Cameron can be his favorite son uncontested from now on. I'm just going to live my life and keep my dad at arm's length. I'm not going to try to force him to prove his love for me anymore.